Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to Talking with Teachers. I'm your host, Dr. Abdullah bin Hamid Ali. And today, once again, we have a very special guest. For the past 41 years, Imam Faheem Shuaibe has been the resident Imam of Masjidul Waritheen in Oakland, California. He's a lifelong student of Imam W. Muhammad. May Allah be pleased with him. He's also the founder of M.A.R.I.A.M, Muslim American Research Institute advocating marriage, which is a clear understanding, also the founder of a Clear Understanding Institute and the Sacred Life Project, a public language codification project focused on the language, logic, and legacy of Imam Waritheen Mohammed. He is an entrepreneur and hosts 5 weekly blog talk radio broadcasts and the recipient of the Muslim Journal's Muhammad Ali Lifetime Achievement Award, also a recipient of Atlanta Masjid and Mu'minun's Muhammad Ali Humanitarian Award. May 11th was proclaimed by the mayor and city council of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, as Imam Faheem Shuaibe Day. Imam Shuaibe has been a lecturer at many different places, including Berkeley's Holy Hill, at the Graduate Theological Union, the Commonwealth Club of San Francisco, AT&T, and other places, Yale University School of Law, Howard University, etc. He's a former board member of the Islamic Networks Group, an international interfaith education organization. He has been part of several distinguished delegations that have taken him around the globe on various educational, religious, interfaith, and peace missions. He has been a delegate to Saudi Arabia, Italy, Sudan, Malaysia, Egypt, the British Isles, and the Caribbean. And of course, there's a whole lot more that we can say about Imam Faheem, but we like to bring him to the screen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah.
Well, thank you, Imam, for accepting the invitation to join us today. Really do appreciate it. And I'd like to apologize once again that we've been out of touch for such a long time, and so saw you the other day at the memorial of Imam Abu Qadir and Amin, his memorial. May Allah have mercy on him. And so I just, it sparked, or just reminded me of the importance of bringing someone like yourself onto this new podcast.
Thank you. I'm absolutely humbled by the opportunity and invitation. The Quran talks about the honorable mention on the tongue of truth. Mm-hmm. So to be even in the honorable mention category of those that have graced this stage is a blessing in and of itself. Yeah. And I won't start, really my praise, all praise is due to Allah, but you are so special. But I'm a step back, but I do feel the need to say this one thing. Before I knew you, right? I was invited to do a lecture presentation in Pasadena, California, and it was on Sunnah and Bid'ah, right? And so I used this professor's paper on Sunnah and Bid'ah, and I didn't know that it was you. I didn't even know, who you were, quote unquote. It was just a scholar's treatment of this subject, and I really, really valued that. Then when I finally had the opportunity to meet you, I said, "Oh, he's the one that did this paper that I used." Alhamdulillah. And then your character, your demeanor is just so special. But I'll back out. Go ahead.
Well, alhamdulillah, I've had good teachers. I've had good elders. And of course, I can always learn more. All of us can learn more naturally. I haven't always been the best student, and not the best of youngins, right? But that's part of what again this project is all about, is to introduce people to our elders, to people who actually have been in the community, working for years, toiling for years, trying to maintain, to establish something, but also maintain some stability in our community and to give hope to the future. And I consider you to be among those people. I wanted to begin by asking you just to speak a little bit about yourself and your family background. How did you become Muslim? How do you become Imam? How did you even, I would say, how do you become an individual of, and of course, you may, out of your humility, you may say that you are, insignificant, but, someone of significance in particular in the context of the Imam W. Muhammad community.
MashaAllah. So, and you can stop me at any point in time in this, because that's a lot. That's a big piece of cloth. But I'll say this much: I was born in Denison, Texas. Family moved to California when I was 6 years old. So I've been in California, specifically Northern California, Oakland, Bay Area, for the balance of my life. I am 72 years old now, and no, I'll be 72 this December. Sometimes you stop counting, but 72. So my education, my educational, my life background, the core of it was in this portion of Oakland that's called Sobriety Park. Sobriety Park was all my youth, elementary, junior high school, and high school life. I graduated from Skyline High School, which was really like poles apart. Sobriety Park is like, the born on a dead end street kind of thing. And, Skyline's, Skyline's, what do you call it? Mascot. And the name of it was Mount Olympus, right? That's where Skyline High School, Mount Olympus, they were the Titans. So I went to high school there. My life essentially was such that my mother and father, they were together. They divorced when I was 12 years old. My father, in a manner of speaking, if I was to say anything, I wouldn't say he was an atheist. Not at all. He never gave me the impression that he was an atheist, but he was not a quote unquote religious man per se. If I were to say anything, he was like agnostic, and I have no hatred, no disdain or anything for him. It was just, I'm just describing him. My mother, she was a woman of the church. But it's the Community Reform Church. There was one church in Sobriety Park, which is deep East Oakland. It was the one church we went to that, and it came from the Dutch Reform movement. So there wasn't a lot of organs and bands, and the choir wasn't the central part of it. I mean, we tried, but there is that's essentially my background. My mother was very active in that church, and as most Black mothers, they take their children, encourage their children to go to church, and so we went to Sunday school and the like, and so that essentially was about. My mother was very, very oriented towards all of us living a moral life. There was nothing about her life. Evidently, I mean, they had parties, we have parties, right? You have those Saturday night parties, and the kids are in the back room, and the parents are in the front room, and they're playing those blues and those rock and roll music, blah blah. So we had all that, but there was nothing loose about her at all. So she was always encouraging all of us to be moral. So I do have that foundation. And just to speak of my mother, so there would be a union, a symmetry between that. My mother, when I became a Muslim, as I understood it to be Islam, that is, I joined the Nation of Islam. I would expect that may come up later in our conversation, but I joined the Nation of Islam after graduating high school, after spending a year, living that street life. I was like one of those corner boys, right? So it's like, so you see the corner boys today, it's like, okay, I was one of those corner boys. And so it's like, but my mother, she had, I was on a long leash, and I didn't learn until after she and I, who were Muslim, that she had one of the you know this language. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. You invited me, so I have to talk the way that I talk. It said he was watching me. I didn't know he was watching me because she had a sense of, okay, there's some dangerous stuff going on out here. But the guy that lived actually across the street, he was one of the quote unquote kingpins in terms of that. So my being out there, I was always under supervision, though I didn't know. Bottom line is that after I quote unquote got to the so-called, upper echelons at the top levels of that, then I looked around and all the guys that I was hanging out with doing the same thing every day and all the time. It's like, man, these guys ain't going nowhere. So I went back to school being junior college. I was in the first class of the College of Alameda, which was freshly built at that time. This was 69 I graduated, so I went back 70, 71. During that period of time, when I had made a decision, shortening the story, when I had made the decision, I told my mother that I was going to be a part of the Nation of Islam. The only thing she said was, be careful. She didn't say, you crazy, what are you doing? I did that. Then she said, and when she was 50 at this time, she said, I watched you for 10 years to see if it was real, right? Because of the fact that she said, boy, you operate just on this side of the law. So I was always just like tiptoeing on the edge of, so I never did any jail time, but I did things that would normally, and took so many of my friends to jail. But she watched, and for 10 years, she saw that, he became the person that I always wanted him to be. And it was because of this that he is accepted. And so she accepted Islam, as she says, as a birthday gift to herself. On her 50th birthday, she became Muslim. Rahimahullah. She's passed away. But she made Hajj before I made Hajj. So her trajectory and her movement into that. So I am of the nature of her, and she had this proclivity too. So education is a big part of my background. It's in my and her and in the family's DNA. I mean, I'm talking about from a ancestry.com perspective. The two branches of our family are branches of business, art. I said two branches, three basically: business, art, and education. And so that's sort of like what makes me, as regards morality and knowledge, I tie it back very much so to my mother. So let me cut right here so you can take it off. Take off from.
No, alhamdulillah. No, it's really fascinating just to listen to the story. I mean, I don't think you should feel uneasy about my silence. I'm just trying to just give the audience an opportunity to absorb what your experience as well, your story. I'm absorbing it too. And one thing is interesting that I've noticed with a few different interviews prior to you is, and I'm not sure if this is particular to Black, the Black guests that I've had, African American guests I've had on the show, is that there's a situation, a common story would be, okay, well, my mom and dad, they were divorced when we were young, when I was young, and my mother, was a bit more spiritual than my father was, right? And so a lot of your sort of spiritual sentiment is connected to what you had learned from your mother, right? It's just sort of an observation, that I've had. I mean, for me, for me, it was a little bit different because I sort of feel like my father was the more spiritual of my parents, at least the more religious, I would say, of my parents. And my mother, I guess you would say, she was a bit more incredulous about things, right? In other words, she was much more of a skeptic about, even when she was in the Nation of Islam, like she told me that she never believes in the white man was the devil and things like that, right? But she was really into it because of the unity and those type of things, where anyway, again, it's just more like it's an observation that that I've made just by listening to yourself and listening to some others that have passed. You know, I've actually interviewed before, and also, you know, it's really interesting too. Is it's like because you and your mother become Muslim, both of you become Muslim, and sure, she becomes Muslim because she's observing your character.
Yes.
And this is also, I guess I could say that this is somewhat also a theme that comes up often during these interviews too, which is related to my personal belief that we need to get back to focusing on character,
Yes.
right? And I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he intended for his message to be conveyed through people rather than through books.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You know,
yes.
the person is the book, right?
Yes.
You know, so your mother observing your character is what really made her realize, you know, oh, this stuff is real, right? You know,
yes,
that,
yes.
you know, if it can do it to him, it can do it to me. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So,
and as you well know, you know, in the history of, I believe Malaysia is as well, but I think Indonesia is probably the most popular representation of the fact that Muslim merchants come to Indonesia, and it's not really so much of their teaching per se, but it was just the way that they were, the way that they did business, and in their daily practice, and the interest that gets generated from what are you doing, and why do you guys do this way? And then it had this natural attraction to the nature of the human, and that's the significance, and therefore that's the model that we do have to follow. And of course, that is the Prophet as well, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? His uswa, his way of being, right?
Right, exactly. You know, and so. So it's definitely that. But for me, I'm suggesting something a little bit more. I'm suggesting that I think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always wanted it to be, and of course I can't say for certain, but it seems to me that the trajectory he placed humanity on was one where people transmit discipline to other people, right?
Yes.
And people teach other people how to become better people, as opposed to just, you know, giving a book to every single person. He gives to one person, you know, a revelation to one person, you know, and that person conveys that message, you know, but the person also embodies the message, you know, to show us how to become a human being. And I think that even just again thinking about reflecting upon people's stories, and I've said this before as well, is that it helps to humanize the imam or the scholar or whoever the person may be, and helps people to understand, you know, why you may be the way you are, right? And hopefully by understanding why you are and what your journey was, it'll help people to be a bit more compassionate as well.
Absolutely.
They see your flaws. You know, they see your flaws, like, oh yeah, he's wrong on this, wrong on that, or he has this flaw. So it's probably because of that, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. You know, when I see you, I always think about Philadelphia, right? It's like that's where I locate you. Is that your origin, or is that just something in the path that you?
Yeah, I see it. I mean, sometimes I see it as my origin, and other times I see it as part of just my journey, right? Because actually, what a lot of people don't know is that I was born in Philadelphia, but right after I was born, my family moved to Chicago.
Okay.
Right? So, and then I didn't move back to Philadelphia until I was close to 12. Right?
Okay.
So I spent about 11 years in Chicago. Then from 12 years old on up, right? So sometimes I'll tell people I'm from Chicago, right? Yeah. Then I'm from Philly, right? Yeah. So when I'm with the people from Chicago, I'll say I'm from Chicago, right? When I'm from Philly, I'm from Philly, right?
And that connection to be made, it's even more emphatic now with the idea of Philadelphia and Chicago. These are major centers of the original Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam. And to speak about how, you know, the person to person, as opposed to just simply from the book, there's a part of that old language that said men sharpen men, steel sharpen steel, and men sharpen men, right? So it takes that, you know, one-on-one, person to person, man to man kind of contact in order to get the kind of, you know, brilliance, effect, and change that you'd like to see.
Right, right, exactly. So you after high school, you said after high school you entered the Nation of Islam.
Yes, yes.
No, so I'm assuming in the Nation of Islam, this was under the leadership of Imam W. Muhammad, or was this in the what we call
No,
the first
this
resurrection?
was okay. So this was 19. I formally made my declaration to become a part of what was in the Nation of Islam in January 1, 1972. That was like people talk about New Year's resolutions, right? So it's like January 1, 1970. This is it. This is what I'm doing, and whatever's behind me, that's what's behind me. I'm gone, right? And alhamdulillah, you know, that was the beginning of the move at that time. I have to say, I respect your scholarship and the scholars that are there, so I take advantage of. I know that you know these things when we talk about Diogenes, for example, right? Diogenes and the cynics and the like. I didn't, of course, I didn't understand what was going on with me more until I became more self-aware, right? But before I attained that, my movement psychically and cognitively was looking at, quote, Black people and the block that I was on. When I said I rose to a certain level on the block and I looked around, the guys, you know, they're my partners, they're friends, and those that are living now, we still find mutual respect, what have you. But the idea was that, hey, look, man, we can't, you know, it's not a good thing that we do the same thing every day, all the time, you know, except where's the advancement, where's the goal? When I realized that at that level, it's like nobody's going to, so I had to go back to school. But what had happened to cause me to incline in that direction, there were some guys before me who were, you know, let me use this language, like they were real dogs, you know, they were like, it's like they were rough cats, man. But then I was already in the mode where saying, man, there's got to be a better way for Black people. There's got to be a way. I know we're better than this. What I'm seeing, we're better than this. This was my attitude before knowing anything about Elijah or Malcolm or anybody else. But then a couple of guys off the block, they left. You didn't see them for a minute, and then they come back and say, "Wait, is that?" I'll give you a name, Marvin. He's passed away. Rahimahullah. It's like, is that him? He was like, and this is just the truth, no shade. It's like in his life before the Nation of Islam, he was like literally like one of those dogs that get locked in the backyard, then they get loose in the neighborhood, and it's like, man, how'd that dog get out, right? So he was like that, right, in the neighborhood. But then when he flipped to the Nation of Islam and said, man, wherever and whatever did that for him, that's what I'm looking for. And I got several other stories like that that were the how can you say, the catalyst for me finally making that decision. So I did finally make that decision and committed to it in 72. And then, of course, you know, there is a movement from that with the coming of Imam Muhammad into that position, which he was already in the DNA. That's a whole nother story. He was already in the DNA, in the plan of the projected goal for that system. So that was not to be, the Nation of Islam was not to be the end of it. The Nation of Islam is something of a womb, without elaborating on, it's a womb for a different mind, a different thinking. And that different thinking is what can be seen now in those who transitioned from the Nation of Islam with Imam Muhammad and began to study all the old language, putting it in its proper place, and understanding the Quran in its originality, and understanding that a part of the destiny and the intention of the whole movement, with all of what can be criticized about it, legitimately so from an outside perspective, but all of its intention was ultimately to get to an autonomous thinker who can read the Quran in a way respecting the intention, quote unquote, to the extent that we can, of Allah for what He has revealed. And Imam Muhammad, his work was really like a setup for that kind of freedom, if you will, and scholarship vis-a-vis al-Islam and the Quran and the life model of Prophet Muhammad.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's sort of like just a particular approach or interpretive approach, which actually it served the cultural and psychological evolution of Black American community.
Yeah.
At least that was the outlook, you know, the idea, right? Alhamdulillah. Yeah. I mean, of course, so many of us have the connection, right, to that community, and I think that our community overall are indebted to that early effort, you know. And of course, it's kind of hard for a lot of people today to acknowledge that, because you got the theology, the credo, the false aspects of the
absolutely
theology, right.
Can I say this, Doctor? I would suspect that we want people to, if you have an interest in following up on it, and do that. Right now, I've been since Ramadan this year, I've been working on and delivered Ramadan sessions, as we call them, on that path, that is from the origins of al-Islam in Mecca, then its movement in Africa, and particularly North Africa, East Africa, West Africa, slave trade, then slavery, chattel slavery, then all the freedom movement there. And then to get to understand that movement in the context of this redemptive process that we have, and we're still undergoing it right now. I've been doing lectures so that those who say, okay, well, help me understand this in the how do you reconcile X, Y, Z, right? So we're doing that. You can find them on YouTube and Facebook under my name.
Yeah, I definitely want to ask you about the state of Black America, but before that, I wanted to ask you, like, at what point in your journey did you become an imam, and how did that?
Okay. So Imam Muhammad Ali, he came, there's many. I became the first imam that was selected by the community to say, okay, who do you want to be the imam? So, and this was 1982. Before that, I become a part of that community, Nation of Islam, 1972. Imam Muhammad, Muhammad passed away. Imam Muhammad becomes the leader, and so we transition 75. So then, 7 years later, 1982. There's actually a count. It's like there were like 6 imams, ministers / imams, because in the Nation of Islam we were called ministers. We were not called imams. So then there's Imam John Fakir, rahimahullah, who passed away, originally from Buffalo. He came to Oakland after the previous minister was set down. So the point is that there were 6 in front of me. I was the 7th. And Imam Muhammad had been an imam in Oakland. And this is just history. So we just got to state the history such as it is. When the imam left Oakland, first he wanted Oakland, in a manner of speaking, to be something of his Medina, right? It's like, he's making hijrah from Chicago, because Chicago, you already know, Chicago is a whole nother animal, right? Then and now. Any case, so he comes to Oakland, and but the kind of traction, let's call it, that was hoped for and aspired to, really didn't happen in Oakland. And the Imam said it. He said it publicly. So I'm not talking out of school here. He said when he left, he says there's too many hypocrites here. I'm just saying. That's what he said to the group. And we were all, Northern California was all, like joining the tribes on Survivor. It's like the Imam had put everybody into one house. That's the 1652 47th Avenue, where we, essentially are right now. So in any case, when he left, Imam Abu Qadir Al-Amin was appointed. And then something transpired in relationship to one of the movements, and a mistake was made. And so Imam Muhammad took him out of that position. But rather than appoint somebody to the position, he invited the community to decide who they want to be the imam. And so the imam conducted this kind of, you know, right there election type thing, or selection, whatever you want to call it. And the choice came down to me. There was elimination, and the choice overall became me. So I became the resident imam by the proclamation of the community, by the shura, what have you, of the community in 1982, and I've been the imam since that time. And
mashallah. And that's pretty fascinating story. I mean, I think that's really an important story, even for our community to hear, just even the way, because so many people become imam by simply opening up a storefront or right. We purchase the building, we rent the building, you know, I'm imam now, right? And so in particular, you know, historically in the African American community, you know, you actually get appointed, there's an election, there's an appointment, you're following up on some things. And actually I moved here to California in 2007. And I can't remember if it was an event that happened in 2007 or 2008, but Imam Muhammad, rahimahullah, he actually was visiting California, San Francisco.
San Francisco, yes.
Right.
That was like one of, if not his last visit to California. It was really, really, you know, special to us. But I remember.
Yeah, and I think you were there.
Abu Qadir was the host.
Yeah, and I actually shared the stage with them, right? So I remember I was invited to speak. I was there. Imam Abu Qadir came in with the imam. He arrived with the imam, but I was actually there on stage. Imam Sulaiman Hamid from Atlanta was there. I can't remember if you were on the stage as well, right? Did you?
No. There's a little inside story to that. We're not even going to talk about that on here right now. Okay. But no, I was in the audience. Okay. I was in the audience. But ultimately, I wound up on the stage. If you remember how things ended, right?
Right.
How there was like a broad invitation for everyone to come up and you know, give your salams to the imam. And I think, you know, providentially speaking, you know, it's like that was really a blessing, whoever had the opportunity to do that, because that would literally be the last time that you would actually have the opportunity to be in touch with the imam. So it was a very special occasion. Right.
Well, I mean, so 41 years, right? Imam, you know, in Oakland, California. How would you characterize the state of Black America at this point? Well, wait, pause.
Okay.
So before you answer that question, I wanted to mention, I mean, there were some rumors that I heard myself back after the imam passed away. And so there was, you know, rumors going around that, okay, well, there's going to be a successor, right, to the imam. I remember that your name had come up a number of times, and there were some other people as well, right? But apparently, no one succeeded the imam, right? Why is that?
Okay, that's another good long story. I mean, this is a part of it. Well, okay, let me say to you, we're back to Philadelphia. Because of this, I was invited in 2011 to, and I know you know the masjid that was called, I don't know if it's still called that, the Claire Mohammed Masjid, Claire Mohammed Masjid. And so I was invited there to speak, and so, you know, we do ta'aleem. And so I hadn't selected a subject. I was just there for a banquet and something else. And so the invitation came up to do that. And so I had a paper that I had already written, but I hadn't published it anywhere. And that was, it was basically entitled, The Way Forward for the Community of Imam W. Mohammed. That's my statement. And so I actually literally read that paper to the community, which is not habitual for us, but I did it anyway. And it took 3 hours, right? It took 3 hours. Nobody went to sleep. Nobody got up, walked out. Nobody's shifting in their seat. So I thank Allah for it. There's no boast. I thank Allah for it. In that paper, the reason I'm raising that up is because at that time I was addressing. So this is 3 years after the Imam. So through that paper, and in Philadelphia, such as it was, there was for me, it still is there, but there's more to it. But the idea is that the Constitutional Convention and what was done in Philadelphia by the founders and the crafters of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, et cetera, I essentially, making it brief, I essentially said, you know what? We're going to need to do the same thing. We're going to need to have some kind of shura at large to make some decisions about that, because different people reading different aspects and things that the Imam have said, some say if you read this way, then that means there should be no leader. Then the others say if you read it this way, then there must be a leader, or you're not going to make one. So then this is the ikhtilaf, if I dare use a scholarly term, in our career at that time, right? And only in a way it's still there. But I haven't read it, but I have to accept it as in principle, and I think it's proper. It's not a Muslim author. It's called The Starfish and the Spider. The Starfish and the Spider. It's a leadership concept, and it's a leadership concept talking about centralization versus decentralization. Right, the leadership that is decentralized is less vulnerable than the leadership that is centralized. If a leadership is centralized, then it's easy to undermine the whole thing, because all you got to do is chop off the head. When you chop off the head, that's it. But if you have a decentralized leadership, then where do you go to kill the thing, quote unquote, whatever it might be, organization? And we saw that and have seen that happen with titular leadership, with the head operation. So as with most things, it's about the balance between the two. So in terms of the succession of leadership, that was one paper that I'm mentioning, but there was also another paper that I did, and it had to do with the language of Imam Waritheen Muhammad, which is another story. But the issue is, Imam Muhammad is and can be seen, and is seen by those who are quote unquote associates of his. His presence is in the language body. His presence is in. You talked about. You didn't say pedagogy, but it's like epistemology, right? That Imam Muhammad has given us a very specific epistemology. You read in the intro the idea about the Sacred Life Project, which is a language codification process. So there's so much that it's like, what is Imam Muhammad's lexicon? What is his vocabulary? What does he mean when he uses this term and that term? And it's still, for so many people, unless you have forensically sort of studied the Imam in that sense, you sort of like, you would take an intuitive definition for a term, and it's not as intuitive as it might say, oh yeah, we heard that word before, and this is what it means. No, in his language schema, it means this, and you have to know the context in which he used it in order to know. And it sounds complex, but I'm speaking to you as a scholar, and I expect the scholars that are listening. It's like, no, that's what happens in scholarship. Right. Because M.A.R.I.A.M might say this, and Shawkani may say that, and they're talking about the same word in the same verse, but each one is giving a different emphasis to it than the other. And those differences of opinion are valid, quote unquote, where they are. And so it is with Imam Muhammad. So you do have those who say, I'm the one that should be, not me, Faheem Shuaibe, those who make that declaration. Yes, I'm the true successor to the Imam, mashallah. But what's new about that? Where has that never happened in history, right? Just honestly, just put a personal touch on it. Honestly, for me, it's like, I don't even get into it. I don't indulge it. What I said in that Philadelphia paper in 2011, amazingly, it's 2024 right now. I said, by my estimation, it would take at least 13 years. I did some calculation in the paper. 13 years before we're at the point where we can even come into the how can you say, commitment to, okay, well, let's do this. Let's make this. But the point is that if the disposition and the ethos of those so identified as inheritors of that legacy, if it hasn't risen to the point where it can give rise to this kind of capacity for doing that, well, then you're not ready yet. So, to end my statement on that, it's like I put in the paper, I said, what we have to operate on is the ripe fruit concept, the ripe fruit concept. And what I meant by that, naturally fruit and fruit of Islam fits into our paradigm. But I'm saying, right, okay, look, if you go to a tree and you look at that tree and you look at the fruit of that tree and you know when fruit is mature on that tree, then that's what you should pick. You should pick the ripe fruit. So you need to define, okay, what's good for us? Who in whatever category, right? Whatever category, academics, government, culture, religious, insight, knowledge, etc. Okay, where's the ripe fruit? We're a garden, where's the ripe fruit? Then that's what we have to learn how to pick, irrespective of personality, irrespective of whether you sold fish or papers or anything like that. It's like, where is the right fruit for what needs to be done? And that's Quran for sure. It said, render your position of trust over to those to whom they are due. Yes. Right? So the point is, you guys say, okay, who has the right? It's just like when I know I'm going on, but I think about when Abu Bakr, when he became the Khalifa, and I know that there's debate around that whole issue. But the point is that, hey, look, I know you all believe that you're qualified for this, and everything you say about yourself, that's true. But it's got to be Quraysh. It's like, it's like nothing personal. It's like, y'all know this. So that wasn't the case. And of course, you know better than I do this. When Omar saw what was going down, he said, he gave his fealty to Abu Bakr, and the rest is history, with all that entails.
Right.
So we are, in a certain way, there's some very, very fine trees, very, very fine institutions that are born in this decentralized way from the legacy of the Imam, and they are moving towards their own maturity and ripeness and the like. So in the community of Imam W. Muhammad, there's not. Wallahi, I think I have a high level view of who we are and what we are, and I get those calls from leaders in our community consultatively about, okay, Imam, what do you think about this? And I'm talking about from leaders. It's no boast. I'm saying. So I'm saying the veracity of what I'm saying to you is from a point of view that if there are three people, Allahu Alam, if there are three people that know better than me, I need to be introduced to them.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like there was somewhat of like a constitutional crisis.
Somewhat.
Right. And but is there at least?
Let me say this though, because I did use crisis in that paper when I talked about it, and I got big pushback, from some significant individuals. Ain't no crisis in our community. So I get it. I get it, and I love them. But the point is that if there's conflicting perceptions among those who are supposed to be cooperatively moving in a certain direction, whether that is something of a crisis if it's not happening the way that it should. But I would not say that right now because people have found their levels and their places. Those who are significant contributors to the movement, and that you could actually define as leadership, even though it's decentralized, that is happening.
So there is somewhat like a council of elders, I guess you would say.
there's a tacit council, let's put it like that. But then there is still in the community of Imam W. Muhammad, there is still the 6 regional leaders that are still representing the East Coast, Eastern region, Southern region, the Northwest. There is leadership identified with that,
right?
So yeah, there is still a structure that remains from that time, but it's not something that everybody is by default obligated to respond to and obey. But it's continued to do its work and make a contribution in its way.
Right. So since the nation itself has been so much connected to the plight of the African American, and in light of your experience as an imam and your discussions with others around the country over the years, how would you characterize the state of Black America?
Well,
and I just add, what's the state of Black America, and is there something that Muslims could do to help, right, that they're not doing anymore?
Well, yes, but I don't know if it's unfortunate to have to say, it's like, if Muslims would just be more Muslim, right? If we would just really practice what Allah has revealed in the Quran, what the Prophet has modeled, and understand the appropriate adaptation circumstantially. It's like there's a conservative position for some Muslims that give no leeway. There's no margin. There's no flex. It's like, okay, if you want to be all right, then you have to do absolutely this and absolutely nothing else. And if you're not ready, then you're just a kuffar. And those of you are ready, come on, let's go. So as far as when you talk about Black people in general, non-Muslim Black people, we're absolutely vulnerable and at risk. And with the 2024 nature of elections and the stuff and what could possibly happen, we are really in a dangerous place. And I mashallah, it is, one of the things I have to say, one of the most dangerous, poisonous, problematic aspects, especially when we talk about the younger people, but the older people too, is the whole quote unquote music industry, the hip hop industry, and that whatever it might be, say whatever you will, but they sing the songs of what kills us, literally and figuratively. And because that is the popular mantra, imagery, the Pied Piper call to the young people, it's like you're being invited off the cliff, and so much is invested in it, and the weakness of the moral weakness that has been built up. It's like it's a rare, it's all too rare that young people have this inclination to want to live life on a more moral basis. But I have to say this: a part of what contributes to that is the failure on the part of those who have a responsibility to create an infrastructure to satisfy the needs that they are artificially trying to satisfy in those other things, those whatever, the cars, the money, the women, the this and that. It's like that's an aspiration of an individual to have those things because they are symbols of status and still symbols of value and symbols of achievement, etc. But again, all being pointed to and sought to acquire in all the wrong ways. It's not wrong to want those things and have those things. That is the excellent things, of whatever, handsomeness, beauty, wealth, status, stature, recognition. those are not wrong things. How you go about getting is it. But if we're not providing an alternative to the ways that are being offered by them, is that okay? I tell you, stop selling drugs. Okay, I stop. Okay, now, okay, what am I going to do? What do you want me to do? Right. Oh, we don't have nothing. We'll just make salah and make prayer, and Allah will make a way. Right. So it's that catch-22 that's the way that we contribute to it. In the absence of having those infrastructures to support movements towards success by other means.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is that Muslims partially share a responsibility in creating that infrastructure, as opposed to just simply the government. Because a lot of times people will say, "Oh, the government's responsible," and because the government then provide these things, you know, then these people, this is why they are the way they are. I mean, I think as well, like, what about just the psychological tools to actually deal with one's plight, right? You know, it's like, well, being grateful, you know, encouraging people to be grateful for what they have, right? You know, there's always someone who's worse off than you are.
Right.
You know, it's like you don't have to steal things. You don't have to go kill people.
Right.
You know, I mean, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ goes, you know, whoever wakes up and they're safe in their person, they're, you know, they're healthy, physically healthy, and they have enough to eat for the day. Then it's as if that person has been given the entire world, right? And so, I think like those things that Muslims, I often feel like, especially in particular, I'm talking about Black African American Muslims, that we're not taken seriously by non-Muslim Blacks, right? In the way that we used to, right? We used to be taken, right? You know, and quite often we, you know, when we actually try to be, I guess you see, hip, you know, we sort of jump on their bandwagon, right? So they're about something, you know, as a Muslims, we say, oh, we're going to jump on their bandwagon and we're going to just sort of deal with the situation in the same way that a non-Muslim decides to deal with it, thinking that we're going to win favor with them, you know, without actually mentioning to them that there's another way to address this issue, you know, and the Islam has a way to address that issue.
Yeah, and let me add to that, and inside of everything that I'm saying, it's about striking the balance, right? We need to do this and we need to do that. You know, tie your camel and trust in Allah. You have to do both things, right? You mentioned the hadith of the Prophet and different things that we can, when the attribute al-Ghani, right? Al-Ghani, one of my understandings of al-Ghani is the self-sufficient, right? And inside of that meaning is that as long as you have, which is like what you just said, look at the moment that you're in right now. In the moment that you are right now, what do you need? Literally, I don't need my car right now. I don't need my bed right now. I don't need any food right now. In this moment, I am a ghani. In this moment, I am self-sufficient because I have everything I need right now. Now, 5 minutes from now, I may need something else. But the point is, every moment that I exist, having everything that I need is al-Ghani. Now, in terms of just that paradigm, people getting that as a paradigm so that when their mind goes to some other way, such that, you know, Satan threatens you with poverty and bids you to conduct unseemly, say, okay, well, let me get away from that thought. What also the Prophet, peace be upon him, gives a model that I sometimes call it's capitalist, but not in the worst pejorative way. I'm thinking about it in terms of capital equipment, right? A man came to the Prophet, you know this. A man came to the Prophet asking, give me some charity. The Prophet said, what do you have? And he said, I don't have anything. The Prophet said, what do you have? Don't have anything. I think the Prophet asked him a third, what do you have? The man said, I have this broken bowl and I have these 2 pieces of cloth or what have you. And so the Prophet asked him to give him the cloth and give him the bowl. And then he took it to the marketplace and said, who will give me a dirham for this, right? And so he articulated that to where he got enough money and he gave it to the man and said, go buy an axe head, right? And so the man went and got the axe head and he brought it back to the Prophet, and the Prophet, you know, put a handle on it and told the man, go chop wood and sell that in the marketplace and don't come back to me for a fortnight, right? Fortnight, 2 weeks, that's a pay period, right? So, so here the prophet showed him, like, first thing is, don't act like you don't have anything. I don't care how impoverished you may feel or think yourself, you have something. You just have to find out what that is. Then you take that and put it, go to the marketplace with it, and then you can evolve that higher. So the entrepreneurial spirit is an invitation. So just like the lamppost, the lamppost initiative, right? You are in a lane that says, look, this is what I'm doing, right? Because I believe this is what contributes to the overall piece. This is my part in the overall. This is not the only thing we need to do, but this is a big, important piece, and I'm devoting myself to that. Well, somebody else has to do the same thing with economics. Somebody else has to do the same thing with politics. And so with regard to that, the idea is, economically speaking, those people who are recognizing that things have to change, then they have to recognize how to facilitate these young people transitioning from having a sense of poverty and the fear of poverty and not having a wherewithal to, or the wherewithal and a resource to help scaffold them up to solving that. It's a movement, right? So, but as long as we don't do that, if we get too focused on things that are not relevant to changing that, then those things, are just going to continue to degenerate.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I want to shift gears just slightly. So I often ask those my guests about personalities who they believe don't receive sufficient attention, who actually, probably would have a major impact on people if they actually were aware of who these people are. Is there any person, any people that you like to showcase, speak about, like, who are would be examples of that, and for what reasons?
They're really, frankly, you talked about leadership. There are really so many that would actually fit on that list, and younger and older. But I gave that a thought, and for now, I'm only going to focus on understanding the Quran in the context of the lives of those people that we know need it most. And I don't know if you know Imam Salim Mu'min with the Mali Institute. They're having their 12th conference, their Quranic Arabic conference in Philadelphia. So Philadelphia seems to be the theme today. In Philadelphia on June 28th. I'm mentioning him. He is literally identified and given by the chief imam of Ghana the title, and it's a working title, as progressive chief in Ghana. He's built a school in Ghana. He every year the Eid make contributions there, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, etc. And but what I'm focusing on now is Mali. There's the Mali Institute. It's called the Muslim American Logic Institute. And I'm focusing him because I see the people that you have had on this broadcast and their depth of knowledge vis-a-vis the Quran and the like. He is profound in his not even when I mentioned Shawkani, and I don't know if I mentioned El-Raghib, Shinkiti, and these are names that I know you know. But he teaches that, and also inside of understanding those scholars and understanding Imam Muhammad in the context of those scholars. So for that reason, it's critical. I know Imam Muhammad, as you already know, is like, and it's again part of what, I respect the fact of this invitation, because of that can sometimes seem parochial and sometimes not be respected as in touch with the traditional classical learnings and teachings. I'm saying to you that he's the one that I would say, okay, talk to him in terms of the Quran, Bil Quran, and the tafsir of, you know, Ibn Kathir and, you know, King Fahad and whoever, mixing all those with the interest of really understanding how what Imam Muhammad has done and spoke from. He limited himself to speaking to his audience, and he could not just simply address the scholars, but the foundation for the language itself is actually rooted in a veritable scholarship classically. And
right.
That's what he taught. Imam Muhammad taught Imam Salim, this is your process. Look at what the Quran says, look at what the scholars say, look at what I say, and then you have something to say. And the Imam told him, don't read translations. So his whole life of study and teaching Quranic Arabic, he wasn't a part of the Nation of Islam, but very early in this movement, he all of his work has been pure Arabic to Arabic, Arabic from Arabic, and understanding Imam Muhammad himself in the context of what Allah has revealed in the Quran and what other scholars have said in those classical volumes.
MashaAllah. So this is Imam Salim Mu'min with the Mali Institute.
Yes.
I'll look him up, inshallah.
All right,
great. I mean, so you actually written a number of books.
Yes.
And I think that one of them was a bestseller on Amazon.
Yes.
What are your titles?
You know what?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I haven't remembered, right? And so I think it's the sacred life, the Faheem. Oh, you see my whole bio? If you have that in front of you.
See if I can. Yeah, I'll just see if I can find them for you.
I believe those two titles are there every time I look at it. And why am I like that?
One is the clear path to human development, human science and scriptural language, and also the reality of our sacred human nature, our origins, and our destiny.
Yes.
So this one says premiered as the #1 new release in religious philosophy on Amazon, right?
Yes, yeah. And speaking of the providence of it all, I had no idea, had no plan, but it premiered February 26th, whatever that was, 2018, maybe it was, right? Which you may remember. That was the Savior's Day. I had no idea of it, that the Savior's Day of the Nation of Islam. So I took it as providential.
Right.
But one of the reasons that it doesn't come to mind right away as a title is because those are basically legacy publications. I mean, it's like there were certain things that I felt needed to be bound as understanding. So just so that it would be out there, so that it could be, understood, because both of those books particularly are grounded in things that were very high on Imam Muhammad's list of significance. The first one is based on the first 3 verses of Surah Al-A'la. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى وقدر فهدى. Imam Muhammad makes a statement, rahimahullah. He says that whenever you know these 4 things about anything, then you know everything about that thing. So he said his work was a work of language, and one of the main terms that he would use in his ministry, if you will, was human. Everything was about human excellence, human nature, human being, etc. And so I took that word and put it in that schema, and that's what that book is about: the form of the human being, the potential in the human being, and so forth.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so hopefully people will look you up on Amazon, inshallah, and get you some new sales.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Right. So before we close, is there a particular way that people can follow your work? Do you have a website or anything like that?
Yes, of course. I have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So we have my name in all of those channels. You can find that. I have a clearunderstanding.institute, clearunderstanding.institute that they can subscribe to if they like. And then masjidulwaritheen.org, masjidulwaritheen.org is our website. So you can follow the local activity from in our community there as well.
Imam Faheem, it really was a pleasure. Really appreciate you taking your time and hopefully we'll see you again in person, inshallah, very soon.
It's an honor. I look forward to it. Are you in the Bay? Or are you somewhere else? Where you
No, I'm still in the Bay. I'm still here.
Okay, inshallah. So I don't know what the final drawing is, but as of now, for some, Eid is going to be on Sunday, inshallah.
Inshallah, Sunday, Monday, inshallah.
Hello,
people Monday, inshallah. Yeah, okay. Some number of people Sunday, some people on Monday. Yeah, so,
yes.
Inshallah. Yeah. Well, inshallah, really do appreciate it. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and support. Check the links in the description below to keep up with our work. Thank you.